So let's bring in our panel to discuss.
Yes.
Right? We have Kelly Sadler joining us. Hi, Kelly.
Hey,
and we
John.
have Rich Rubino.
Hello.
How are you
Hello.
doing?
Hi.
How are you doing this morning?
Doing well. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. So there was a big to-do regarding one of President Trump's comments. I want you to hear it first, and then we'll talk about it. Take a listen. Oh, we don't have it yet? Well, he mentioned bloodbath. And coming from a financial background in terms of Wall Street, when you use bloodbath, you're talking about, let's say, the stock market dropping 500, 700 points. It's a bloodbath. Why? Because it's all in the red, hence bloodbath. But he used bloodbath as it relates to the EV battle in terms of with China. They're building factories in Mexico and plans to import those cars into America for American people who are interested in it to buy it. He's like, he's going to put 100% tariff on it, and we're going to get into this trade battle. That's what he meant by bloodbath. What are your thoughts, Kelly? Isn't that clear?
I thought it was clear, but it's not clear to the liberal news media, which is basically all of the mainstream news media that likes to take President Trump's words out of context to paint the grimmest picture possible. Listen, we saw this with 2016 with the Russia collusion hoax. It was rumors and innuendo spread as fact by the New York Times and the Washington Post. We then saw it in 2020 when anything COVID related, any negative headlines was always attributed to Donald Trump. And now we're seeing it again because the Democrats don't have any policy wins to run on. There's a wide open southern border. There's two hot wars. There's crime in every major city. And there's persistent inflation where people are feeling the pinch of Joe Biden's fiscal spending. So there you have it, right? They have to demonize President Trump in order to have any hopes of winning in November 2024.
Well, they certainly demonized him. I mean, Joe Biden put out a tweet saying it's clear that this guy wants another January 6th. So that's where they took his words. They took it out of context. Rich, what's your analysis on this? What's your reaction?
Yeah, well, obviously, whether it's reality or not, the perception is, and that's certainly, that's certainly what's going to be covered all day. It's going to be a statement. What exactly did he mean by it? Was it literal? Was it figurative? Was he meaning it in an economic point of view, which is basically what his advisors are saying it was? But that's basically what it's going to be in the next couple of days. Now, the question politically is, would you rather be talking about what Donald Trump's meant to say, or would you rather be talking about Donald Trump versus Joe Biden? Would you rather be talking about just Donald Trump, or would you rather be talking about just Joe Biden? It's interesting, but he oftentimes will do this. He'll oftentimes say something, and immediately people will think, "Oh, this is so radical," and then the next day the coverage is all filled with this. And then Donald Trump and his advisors and his press people have to come back and say, "No, he meant this specifically in an economic sense. He did not mean this in a literal sense."
Mm-hmm. Well, we actually have the bloodbath soundbite. Take a listen.
Let me tell you something to China. If you're listening, President Xi, and you and I are friends, but he understands the way I deal, those big monster car manufacturing plants that you're building in Mexico right now, and you think you're going to get that, you're going to not hire Americans, and you're going to sell the cars to us. No, we're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. But they're not going to sell those cars. They're building massive factories.
Yeah, Kelly, that's pretty clear to me. And you know what else is clear? I think the auto industry workers heard exactly what President Trump said. And I think this, in spite of the fact that these union bosses are throwing their weight behind President Biden, I think the workers are going to come out for President Trump. Why? Because they're going to vote in their own self-interest because they want to protect their jobs. What say you, Kelly?
No, absolutely. And I encourage all of your viewers to watch Donald Trump's speeches live and do not take the reported, news from them, from the New York Times, from the Washington Post, from the Boston Globe, because they're always going to distort his words and distort his meaning. Listen, Donald Trump does not talk like a Washington, D.C. politician. And because of that, the political news media is just alarmed. He speaks like a blue collar everyday worker, even though he's a billionaire. So when people listen to his speeches and when they listen to him talk about the EV market, it's very clear to Detroit auto workers and to the auto workers in Ohio that their jobs are being laid off as these car companies switch to EVs. They understand that the batteries and the cobalt and everything that these EVs use is being made in mind in China, giving China the advantage. They've also seen the outsourcing of their jobs throughout the 1990s and no one being willing to protect them. And so when China's building factories in Mexico, trying to get cars into the United States, President Trump sees that as a threat to the US auto industry, which the workers see and feel every day on the ground when more layoffs are being announced because of this terrible shift to EV production.
Mm-hmm. Rich, turning to another topic that broke over the weekend, the Fani Willis case. It took a turn on Friday. Wade is out. Willis is in. Is anyone paying attention to this anymore?
It's become kind of, there's so much going on just nationally, internationally. It's become somewhat of a side issue. People are saying, I think to the extent that anybody's following this, they're saying, oh, it's kind of a secondary story. But I do want to skip back and I do want to make a quick comment about Donald Trump's speech. If you listen to the other part of that speech, when he talked about 100% tariff, for example, on Chinese, that's what differentiates him from the Republican Party generally. Pretty much every Republican candidate from Eisenhower in 52 through Mitt Romney would have said that we need more free trade, we need to open up markets. This is something where actually Donald Trump has a specific, this is his bailiwick, and this is where he sometimes does have support with traditional Reagan-type Democrats and independents. However, Joe Biden also has that bailiwick, and the fact that he did do better than Hillary Clinton did in 2016 shows that he does have some support from union workers. And also, I think part of it is the reason he got the nomination in the first place was because voters in places like South Carolina were looking at the map and they were saying, we want somebody that can actually win a general election. They said Joe Biden can appeal to people in Michigan, can appeal to people in Wisconsin. And that's his one, but you know what? Joe Biden, in many respects, though, he was somebody who voted for NAFTA. So this is actually an issue that Donald Trump can kind of get to the more populist side of Joe Biden and kind of even get to the left of him. So that's what I think Donald Trump should have everybody talking about the next day, not necessarily whether he met bloodbath figuratively or literally.
To your point, Rich, I think Donald Trump does talk about trade, but he often says another word along with trade: free and fair. The fair trade part. That's what people are missing when he talks about it. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's the fair part that he wants to bring back to make sure that the American economy and most of all American workers are protected. But going back to what Krisha pivoted to with regard to the Georgia case, Kelly, I think that this is a huge indictment against Fani Willis, because when you actually read the judge's ruling, he actually scolds her in terms of her decorum, or lack thereof, I should say. Also, the fact that she did benefit despite her claim of paying cash. The fibs, the lies, or whatever you want to call it, coming from their testimony, it was sort of like saying, but if you get rid of Wade, you can continue, but she's technically what? Damaged goods, right, Kelly?
No, she should have been disqualified. And this is the reason why I have a problem with the judge's ruling, is he basically eviscerates her in his report or in his ruling, but then lets her off the hook, saying that Nathan Wade has got to go, but she can stay and oversee this case. It reminds me a lot of the Her report, where he eviscerated Joe Biden in the report, but then recommended bringing no charges because Joe Biden is a feeble-minded, older gentleman, older man. And then you have the same thing with James Comey when he issued his report on Hillary Clinton's, server that was located in her home, where basically he eviscerates her throughout the report, saying that she did a bunch of things wrong that were not part of government protocol, but ultimately, in the end, decided not to prosecute her. This is a repeated thing when you have Republicans making these judgments against Democrats, but the favor is never returned when you have Democrats going after Republicans.
No, that's such a great point, and all of those examples truly show the double standard with respect to our justice system. Rich, what do you make of this case going forward now that Willis is still in? Will it be dropped, and what's to come for Donald Trump out of Georgia?
My guess is it won't be dropped. Obviously, there's always going to be an undercurrent, though, because of Miss Willis, because of what had happened. People are going to be saying, "Isn't that the person isn't that the person who had the affair with the other guy?" That type of thing. But I think it's excuse me. I think it's just going to be something that's going to continue. It's just going to continue. It's just going to be this undercurrent of these kind of the Trump trials, and it's going to be a lot of people are going to be, specifically those in the middle, might be saying, do we really want to go through this for the next 4 years? And that might actually either benefit Joe Biden, or ironically, it might benefit the No Labels Party candidate, because that No Labels Party candidate could say, no matter who it is, or RFK Jr. could say this as well. Okay, look what happened with Joe Biden with the classified documents. Look what happened with Donald Trump. We need somebody. We need to kind of clean house. We need somebody that you will not see these scandals with. Kind of, a pox on both their houses. In that respect, perhaps Joe Biden and Donald Trump could be in a very trepidatious situation.
You know what, Kelly? The judge also, in his ruling, put a gag order on Fani Willis, and that's probably a good thing. If he's not going to take her off the case,
Should talk about it.
Definitely should not talk about it anywhere, especially in the pulpit, because she knew exactly what she was doing, Kelly. She's talking to voters. She's talking to, people that the Democrats need to get to the polls. So it's definitely political. But do you have any other take on the gag order?
Well, I think that Fani Willis is in trouble. Listen, she's opened herself up for appeals. So no matter where her case goes, anyone who's charged by her has got a credible, they've now got this judge's ruling to use in their appeal, saying this entire thing was politically motivated and not based on the facts. She's already got six indictments dismissed by the judge because they didn't give the defendants enough time to even understand what crimes they committed to present a defense, which was a huge slap on the wrist to her, but also showing how disorganized and not up to the level that her office should be to be charging the former president of the United States on some sort of RICO claim.
Another case that we've been following as well this morning is the one in New York. The New York hush money case has come up. It's now delayed, a lot of it having to do with the evidence. Rich, we have one more minute. Can you give your reaction to this delay with respect to this case?
I think that this is kind of a subterranean case for the other case. This is the case that it's actually to Donald Trump's advantage. He can say, why are they prosecuting me on this? Is this really that important? It's the other case, the Georgia case, I think, which actually could have some real, which they could potentially have some real artillery against Donald Trump. But this is just almost seen as kind of an annoyance. I think a lot of people are saying, why is this brought up in the first place? Even people who are not Donald Trump supporters. It's the Georgia case I think he has to worry more about.
Kelly, last.
You know what? This just shows the incompetence of the justice system again. Alvin Bragg asked the Southern District of New York for these records. They did not produce them. So there had to be, a FOIA filing, basically a subpoena compelling the Southern District to produce the records. They produced over 100,000 records that Alvin Bragg and his office couldn't get their hands on. So, this again speaks to the incompetence of these AGs putting their cases together to go after the former president of the United States.
Absolutely. Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan County DA, he's prosecuting trying to prosecute President Trump instead of prosecuting criminals. And then we have the cash stacking, Grey Goose drinking DA in Fulton County. This is liberal madness. Their lawfare has to stop. Thanks for joining First Edition.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.